Kakadosh, Boker Tov. I wanted to share with you a beautiful Dvar Torah that I saw of Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim, which means that the actions of our forefathers, they open up the root, and therefore we're going to have deja vu. We're going to have a repeat of our actions due to our forefathers, which means Yaakov Avinu in this week's parasha, he's going to confront Esav. And when he's going to confront Esav, it says over here that Yaakov Avinu, with his tefillah and his presence that he sent to Esav, he actually did the miracle of Purim. And let's try to understand. It starts at the beginning. Hatzileni nam yadachim yad Esav. He prays. Yaakov Avinu, he says, please, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, save me from my brother. Save me from Esav, because I'm afraid that maybe he'll come and he'll hit me. Right? Vikani, emal banim, like a mother and a child. The Balaturin comes and he says, Hatzileni na miyad, please save me from the hands. Rashet Tevot, the first letters, is Haman. This is a hint that Haman is going to come and he wants to smite, he wants to kill. Right? Who does he want to kill? Emal banim, the women and children. And just like it says, Megillat Esther. And also the Rokeach in Ilchot Purim says, Vaman nafal belel shlishi b'mishteh. He on the Leil Shlishi, right? On the Mishteh, he fell. What's the remes? Gimel lelot Yaakov she'amar pen yavo v'ikanim al banim safa shezosh v'titim lomar tav v'nashim b'yom echad. Everything's going to be in the same night. That's why it says 3 nights. Vayalen sham balayla hu v'ulam balayla hu vayakum balayla hu. When it says over here, Belel Shlishi, right? He's coming and saying on the Tuesday night, he comes and he says, right, that in Mishteh, that's when he fell. It's a hint to 3 different nights. So Yaakov Avinu came and he said, Pen yavo v'ikani em al banim. He comes and he says, there's going to be 3 different nights. Vayalen sham balaylahu. That's when Yaakov Avinu was by himself. Okay? Then it says, V'hulam balaylahu. Right? Each one, these 3 nights that Yaakov Avinu was by himself, was because of the 3 nights. The 3rd night was when Haman, he actually fell. So he went to, and then he took a present to give to Esav. The Rokeach says, it's a hint. When Haman wanted to find out what's going on, he went to the Bet Midrash. And he saw that Mordechai was learning the halachot of the mincha. The mincha, comments of mincha, is a flower offering. And he was showing it with his hands. So when it says that Yaakov Avinu fell asleep and he took with anything which came from his hands and he gave a present, mincha as a present, mincha is also the korban mincha, the flower offering. So that's what Mordechai was learning when Haman HaRasha came and he found, right, Mordechai learning. Yaakov Avinu, how many animals did he send? Yaakov Avinu sent 580 animals, tokef, right? Animals to destroy Esav. And that's how he did the miracle of Purim. Torah Chaim HaKadosh says, Izim matayim shamati mimori zekeni zecher tzadik v'kadosh livracha. I heard from my grandfather, zecher tzadik v'kadosh livracha, that Yaakov Avinu purposely sent this amount of animals Becheshbon Seir, as a numerical value, as a he-goat. Because remember that Esav was called Seira from Seir. That's what we have the Seir. We throw the he-goat on the Kippur, we throw it off the cliff. For the Azazel, we throw it to the Avodah, we throw it off, right, to the Satan. So what happens? He came and he purposely sent Izim V'Rechelim Taf Mem, 480, and then 30, right? Gemalim, camels, 30, with their children becomes 60, so it becomes 580. Parot, uparim, chamishim, 50. Atonot, right? Ve'erim, right? Vayarim, shloshim. It becomes tokef, so it becomes the 580 in total. Yesh lomar de beze pa'al nes, and that's how he made the nes of Purim. Because it says, Vatichtov Esther HaMalka u'Mordechai Yehudi et kol tokef. Esther HaMalka and Mordechai Yehudi, they came and they wrote everything that occurred. When they use the same terminology, tokef, tafkuf pei, which is 580, it was already because the Gemara says that there was a machloket, the tokef of who. Some people say it's the entire story of Achashverosh, when it's Achashverosh started. Some people say it already started from Haman. Some people start when the miracle started. And some people say from Mordechai ve'Esther. And it's all the same. Because the tokef of Mordechai and Esther was pushed off the tokef of Achashverosh and Haman. And everything was done because of Yaakov. Meaning the fact that Yaakov Avinu came and he sent this amount of animals as a present, that's what gave us the power later on in history to take down Haman. Then it says, Vayitem biyad avadav. So he comes and he gives the presents, right? This is the present going to Esav. He's going to try to bribe Esav. And he gives the presents in the hands of his servants, and he places in between each group, he places spaces. So the Balaturim says, Verevach bet hacha. Right? Why does it say Vayiten edel levado? He comes and he says, V'yidach revach ve'atzala. The revach is a space. The revach tasimu. You have to place a space between one camp and another camp of all the animals that are coming to Esav. He says the other revach is what we sing in the Megillah. Revach ve'atzala. That we had a space, we had a salvation. We were breathing calmly. That was a hint for what's going to happen, right? To the future generations, that we have to give briberies to the ministers, right? Just like it says over here, that with this revach, right, that he gave, that it's a gain. Revach is harvachal, so you're gaining something. Yaakov Avinu went and he said that even during the time of Purim, we are going to gain as well. What happened afterwards? Yaakov Avinu comes and he hides Dinah, and she was grabbed by Shechem, right? And also Mordechai. Mordechai came and he hid Esther, right? And she was taken to Achashverosh. You realize the deja vu, it's incredible. How could it be that Yaakov does not want that Dinah is going to be taken by Esav? What does he do? He hides her. What happens? She's grabbed and she's taken by Shechem by force. What happens with Mordechai and Esther? Mordechai hides Esther. She's taken by force to get married to Achashverosh. Vayakom balaylahu. Right? Yaakov Avinu gets up in the night. He takes his wives, right? His two wives, his two maidservants, all his children, the 11 children, and they pass by Ma'avar Yavok. Rashi brings a midrash. Where was Dinah? Why does it say only his 11 children? He had Dinah. He says, no, she locked him inside of a box. He locked her inside of a box. And therefore he was punished. Right? Why? Because if she would have got married to Esav, she would have brought him to do teshuvah. Because a woman is what makes the house. So she could have brought him to do teshuvah. It would have been incredible. That's all that you need. This is a remez that the fact of giving Dinah to Esav was going to actually be something good coming to Klal Yisrael. Okay? And therefore we also see by Mordechai ve'Esther in Targum Sheni. Mordechai hid Esther in the room in order that the Shluchei HaMelech wouldn't find her. But it didn't help. And she was taken. But because that she was taken, that caused the Yeshua for Am Yisrael. The same thing at the end of the day was a salvation for Am Yisrael, the fact that she was taken to the house of Achashverosh. Then Yaakov Avinu comes and he passes by Ma'avar Yabok. What is Ma'avar Yabok? A certain place. So it says Mordechai was the same thing. It says Vayavor Mordechai. Right? What does it mean Vayavor? He passed by a body of river. Right? He passed by a river. Right? So what does that mean? In order to get the Jews from the other side of the river. So just like Yaakov Avinu passed by on the other side, so too Yaakov, right? Mordechai comes and he passes by on the other side to get all the Jews together in order to pray to Hashem. All of a sudden he gets into a fight. Yaakov Avinu gets into a fight with who? With the ministering angel of Esav. So he says, well, it's a siman labanim during the days of Haman, nadedu elyonim. What does that mean? It says that the fact that afterwards, during the days of Haman, it's written, the king couldn't go to sleep. The Gemara Masechet Megillah says, what do you mean king couldn't go to sleep? They were fighting, the Yonim and the Tachtonim. What does that mean? The Malachim, right, were scaring him the entire night. He wasn't able to go to sleep. Why? Because of this concept, right, of, how do you call this? This concept of that Yaakov Avinu went and he was fighting with the Malach. The Geulah, the redemption, during the time of Haman was through Mordechai and Esther, that they come from Binyamin. And Mordechai, the mother, comes from Yehuda. And that's why Yaakov Avinu went and he put them last. What does that mean? If you pay attention, it says, he placed first the maidservants and their children first, then Leah and her children afterwards, and the last one was Rachel and Yosef. Rashi says, Leah viladei acharonim, acharon acharon chaviv, which means he wanted to make sure that he's not going to pull a fast one. If he's going to come and he's going to try to kill someone, at least it was the maidservants and their children first, Then afterwards it was Leah and her children. Then afterwards it was Rachel and Yosef. So he says, but not only that, it was a preparation for the fight against Haman. Because the fight against Haman was Mordechai and Esther, which came from Binyamin, which comes from Rachel. Mordechai was also from the children of Yehuda. So as Rabbi Chana says the name of Yeshua Levi, the father was from Binyamin, but the mother was from Yehuda. And that's why it was so special over here that he gave it to him, that he says that Mordechai, because of Rachel and her children, are the last, because Mordechai and Esther come from Binyamin. And it's also more than that, to show you that this is what's giving them the strength. They actually say that Binyamin, the fact that he didn't bow down to Esav because he was in his mother's stomach. He was the only one that didn't bow down to Esav, right? And Yosef bowed down in front, just that way he doesn't look at the mother. So he went in front of his mother in order to block her, right? But again, you see the power was given because of what happened in the first generations to happening much later on. The next is through the Maaseh of Dinah in killing Shechem, there was the Ness of Hanuka. Think about it. In this week's parasha, we have the entire parasha of what? Of Dinah and Shechem. What happened exactly? Kiddushat Levi in Parashat Vayigash says, Lekulam Natan. What does that mean? Me'ata nireh li techol maaseh shtiftiyah kedoshim v'teorim siman tov lebanim. Says this is Rav Levi Yitzchak Aberdichav. This is, one of the great achronim that he says like this. He says, right, Rav Levi Yitzchak ben Tzara Sasha. He comes and he says, all the maasim of Shifteka, all the actions of the tribes was a good hint, was a good sign to their children. Yosef is a remez, right, to Geulat Mordechai, the Israel from Haman to Rasha. Just like Shimon and Levi, they came and they killed Shechem, was a remez for Geulat Hanuka, right, from this terrible nation that they came from the Greeks, right, that Shechem was through a milchama, through Shimon and Levi, that they went and they killed everyone. Just like Hanuka, the fight was done through the Hashmonaim and their children, that they went and you killed everyone. Hanukkah, it was through the Hashmonaim and their children, which were Kohanim, that they came from Shevet Levi. Because Shechem, right, what happened? What happened with Shechem? It was Shimon and Levi. Levi, right, was one of the ones that were fighting. Just like in Hanukkah, that was one of the children of Matatyahu, right, that his name was Shimon, as brought down in Yosifun, he went and he was the one that he conquered it. So Shimon was the name of the Maccabee that went to war, and he was from Shevet Levi, because the Kohanim come from the Levim, right? And who were the ones that killed the city of Shechem after they violated Dinah? Shimon and Levi, the two brothers. So now we understand why it says in the Torah, Shimon veLevi achim, Shimon and Levi, your brothers. Uvirtzonam yikrusho. What does it mean? It's a remez that the Maaseh of Shechem was going to uproot the ox, just like they say the Yevanim, the Greeks, they wanted to write on the Keren Ashor, on the ox's horns, that we don't have a portion in the God of Israel. So they went and they wanted to uproot us because of the shore. They wanted to uproot us because of the ox. So why? Because imagine every single time they used to be plowing. So imagine every single time you plow and you're coming with your ox and you see right in front of you, I have nothing to do with the God of Israel. It's going to make an impact on the Jews. And that's exactly what the Greeks wanted to do. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that the Kohanim, they're going to come, Shimon and Levi, the brothers, right? They went and they uprooted the shore. They uprooted, right, the Yevanim, the Greeks. And that's what's actually brought down in the Midrash of Maaseh Hanuka. The Midrash says, once the Yevanim saw that the Jews didn't care about the decrees, they went and they made one decree after another decree, that even a kala, even a bride on the first night, she had to have relations first with the minister, right, with the goy, before being with her husband, right? Once Yisrael heard that, they became they didn't want to get married. Why are they going to get married? Yeah, so what happened? Benot Israel, they started becoming older, and they thought, what's going to happen, right? So what happened is that said they were nagu 3 years, right, like that, in 8 months, until it came to the daughter of Matityahu Kohen Gadol, that she got married to the son of a Hashmonai, Elazar, his name was. And once it came to the time that she was going to be married, they came to the time of the Seudah, all the Yirei Yisrael came to the Kavod of Matityahu, and there was nobody greater than them. So when they come, Chana, the daughter of Matityahu, went there. She went and she basically killed him, right? And she went, and once they saw, right, they were embarrassed. They said, what's going on over here? Right? How could they do that? They wanted to kill her. She went and she said, listen to me, my brothers and my uncles. you have to learn from Shimon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, that there were only two of them. And since they were so zealous for their sister, they went and they killed everybody. You guys have to do the same thing. You guys are 5 brothers, Yehuda, Yochanan, Yonatan, Shimon, and Elazar. Pirchei Kiuna, you're more than 200. You're more than even 200 bachurim, right? What is this? Go put your bitachon in Hashem, and He will help you. And she started crying, and she says, Ribono shel olam, if you're not going to actually come and have mercy on us, have mercy on your great name, right? And make a big vengeance. In that moment, right, her brother went, right? And what happened? She went and he became, all fever, he got all piped up. And they said, we're going to do that. They took Etzah, and they went and they said, we're going to take her to the Melech HaGadol. And we're going to say, Achotenu vat Kohen Gadol, right? She's the daughter of the Kohen Gadol, and there's nobody greater. And she doesn't want to go with a king. She only wants to go with a king, right? We're going to go in, and we're going to kill him. And that's exactly what happened. Hashem Yazer v'Yiskivenu. Natru Etzah v'Asem Kodesh Baruch Hu Teshua Gedolah. Shamu bat kol mivet Kodesh Kodeshim Kol Yisrael Natzchu Talia ben Tochia. And that's how they killed them, Antiochus. Right? Imagine what happened. Do you know what that is? They went and they said, this is a bat Kohen Gadol. She's not going to sleep with whoever it is. She could only go with the king. And then they're going to go and they're going to kill him. So after the king, after the milchama, right? So this was the Nes Hanuka, happened from our parashat as well, from the brothers coming and killing out Shechem, right? And Dinah. This is so incredible of the actual story. So now all of a sudden, what happens is as follows, right? After the war with Shechem, they come and they purified, right? And they built a mizbeach. So that's exactly what happened by Hanukkah. It says after the war, it says, Vayomer Yaakov el beto ve'el kol asher imo. So Yaakov comes and he tells his house and he tells everyone there, remove all the gods of the land, right? And you're going to purify yourselves and purify your clothing. Just like during the time of the Chashmonaim, that they came, the children, and they sanctified the Bet HaMikdash. That's what we say in the Tefillah of Al-Nisim. Then Yaakov Avinu says, Venakuma, we're going to come to Betel, we're going to build a Mizbeach, that Hashem help me, right? And he says, so too during the times of the Chashmonaim, they built a new Mizbeach, because they were disgusted by the Mizbeach of the Yevanim, of the Greeks, what they did to it. So they went and they built a new Mizbeach. And then it says, he made a matzeva, and he put oil, right? What does that mean? He put the oil? The miracle of the oil during the time of the Chashmonaim. So you see from here, each one was a miracle that had to do with Hanukkah as well. Then after that, it says, Yaakov, he traveled to Sukkota. And then afterwards, right, to Lachar Miken, right, to Shechem. Remez lebanim, shekdushat ha-Sukkot min leChanukkah. What does that mean? It's a hint to the children that what's going to happen? First, it's going to be to Sukkot. And then afterwards to Shechem. And so he says that tzaddikim say that Shechem is a remez to Gilu Shechinato Yibarach. Because what is Shechem? Shem Kevod Malchuto. Right? The Kavod Malchuto, the respect of his reign. Right? The respect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore he comes and he says this comes from Sukkot. Because it says, Vayavo Yaakov Sukkota. The entire purpose of Sukkot is to bring L'Shem Shamayim. Chag HaSukkot is Tekufat HaShana. What is Tekufat HaShana? To give tokef, to give strength to the rest of the year. And that's what's happening. The Sheltot of Rav Chai Gaon comes and he says in Parashat Vayishlach, came the Malchut Yavana Nesha'ah, and it covered our eyes with Gezerot. And there was a Meshumad Echad, a Oyev Rasha Belial, right? And his name was Titni ben Pahat. And he used to say bad etzot on Israel. He said, as long as the Jews are bringing the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, Tamid Shel Ber Arbaim, nobody could do anything. What did they do? They impurified the Mizbeach, and now they can't bring the Korban Tamid. Then he told them, they have one mitzvah. You get rid of it, that's it. What is it? Halakat menorah. La'alot ner tamid. What did they do? They went and they said, this is the same thing. Because it's written, ten chelek zayin v'gam lechet. Kol zman shenotrim chelek beveti lezayin nerot. Right? As long as they're coming and they're doing the 7 nerot, and they're watching the 8 days, which is the menorah. The menorah in the Bet HaMikdash was 7 candles. And the 8 days of Chag, which is Sukkot, there's nothing what's going to do them. So what happened? They went and they said, that's why we have the Chet, is the Chet Yemei HaChag of also. That means Chanukah is 8 days because of the 8 days of Sukkot. You wanted to come and I'm going to have the 7, right? That's what he says. That means Zayin B'nei Chashmonim Keneged Zayin Nerot, right? ויקבעו על הלל ושמאי חטא ימי חנוכה, על מפלתם של שנים כדי חטא ימי אחד, שאתם רוצים ואתם מתאימים. You guys wanted to come and destroy Sukkot, which is 8 days. I'm going to give them a chag of 8 days, which is Hanuka also as well. So the Sukkot and the Shechem, which is Shem Kol Malchuto, which is Hanuka, is also connected. And now we understand why they wanted to get rid of the 8 days of Sukkot. Therefore, they came and they instituted 8 days of Hanukkah. And that's why we see the Kiddusha. And therefore, the Yevanim, they couldn't stand it. Because their entire purpose was to contaminate Eretz Yisrael, to contaminate Israel, right? And therefore, they wanted to annul Sukkot. Once the Melech HaShvarim came, they light for 8 days. Now it's the exact opposite. Okay? And Hanukkah, a person comes and he puts the Ner Hanukkah below 10, right? Tfachim, right? So he says the Yarda Shechina lemata me'asara, right? That's why he comes and he says, that means basically we're learning also the halachot, right? Of the how you put the Chanukiah, okay? And then also the Bet Yisrael to Hanukkah says also something incredible. He says, Mishnah, it says, Bichagad Hanukkah is liyam bekurim. The Rambam says, Shiyamim yimei simcha. So from until Sukkot, until Hanukkah, it's days of happiness. Michagad Hanukkah yesh zeh shayachut, which means that they used to come, they always used to be, it's a remes for Hanukkah, because there was a connection between them, between Sukkot and Hanukkah. And that's why he says, right, as follows. The Ilchot Hanukkah is in Siman Resh Kaf Hei, right? Ilchot Hanukkah, he comes and he says, right, he says like this, he says, Smach Shemen Nerot Sukkot, Mas Sukkot Chet Yamim, Av Hanukkah Chet Yamim, which means like this, he comes and he says, just like, right, you have Sukkot 8 days, so to Hanukkah is 8 days. And now the hint is also from the next part. Vayavo Yaakov Sukkota, Yaakov comes and he goes to Sukkot. Through the Kiddush of Sukkot, they came to Shechem. They have Hanukkah. So he comes and he says, and through Shechem ben Chamor, they had the Chomriyut. Remember, Chomriyut is physicality. So he comes and he says that Shimon and Levi, because of their spirituality, they defeated the physical. The Greeks, everything was physical. Everything was the body. Everything had to do with the human body. And that's why, with all the things of their strength and everything that they had, and therefore he went against them. After the war of Shechem, right, Yaakov Avinu becomes Israel. So he comes and he says, according to this, the Tikkunei HaZohar says, on Kavdaled Kislev, it's a remes to 24 letters that they have in Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Okay, and Kafhen Kislev is the 25 letters that you have in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Shem Echad. Meaning, in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, you have 25 letters. In Baruch Shem Kavod you have 24 letters. Kavdaled Kislev, right? We were still darkened, and therefore Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed is Shechem, right? It was darkened, and therefore we say it quietly. The Chashmonaim, once they won in the Zechut of Yaakov and Shimon and Levi, they prepared themselves. All of a sudden, now from something quiet, they became Shema Yisrael. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed was said by Yaakov Avinu. Shema Yisrael is Yisrael. We go to a higher level. That's 25 on the 25th of Kislev, on Hanukkah. On the 24th, we were still on a lower level. Once we fought against the Chashmonim, fought against the Greeks, and they won. Now we become Israel. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Shem Echad. And that's why the name became Israel. Okay? So, which is basically also Li Rosh. What does it mean, Li Rosh? That they became, right, the head. Right? And that's why we become Bnei Israel, that we went on a higher level. Okay? Then we have the Gezerah, was Kitvu Lachem Al Keren Ashor, Hayta Levatel B'Bnei Israel. What was the entire purpose of that? They had to come, they wanted to get on the horns of the oxen. They wanted to write, we have no portion in Israel. What's going on exactly? So he says that they had the kavanah with the Greeks when they went and they said, Kitvu lachem al keren ashor, that you guys don't have a chelek belokei Israel. They wanted to destroy Israel. They wanted to destroy the name, not of Yaakov. They wanted to destroy Israel. So therefore, it was the exact same thing with the war of Shimon and Levi and Bnei Yaakov, right? When they wanted to come. And therefore, when they won, they became Israel. They weren't Yaakov anymore. They were Israel. And now we understand also, right, what happened when it says later on that Shimon and Levi, they're brothers. So, but the problem was that they also wanted to get rid of Yosef when they were going to sell Yosef. So Yaakov Avinu comes and he says, Besodam al tavo nafshi, in their hidings, I don't want me to be there. Bikalam, in their congregations, I don't want my kavod to be there. Because with their anger, with their wrath, they wanted to kill someone. With their will, they wanted to uproot a shore. Arura pam kiyaz. I don't want this anger. I'm going to disperse them amongst Israel. That's why the Leviim, right? Shimon, they always have to be dispersed. So now we understand why there's no zechut in Chelek Be'Kol Yisrael, right? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Yaakov to Israel. Now we are going to understand what's the minhag, right? L'sovev l'avtachim beChanuka, which means like this. Now we understand the Magen Avraham brings that there was a minhag, that the poor people, right, the ne'arim, the young poor people, they used to go every single time collecting tzedakah on Hanuka. What does that come from? So it says, "Chalakem biYaakov v'afitzem biYisrael." Right. What happened is that the melamdei tinokot and the aniyim, the sofrim, right, the children, really like the Rebbis, the Rebbeim and teachers, right, and the people that they were sofrim, they would come and write. They always usually come from Shimon, and also from Shevat Levi. Right, Levi would get the maasrot, so they would have to come around getting the tithes, getting maaser. So why were they going around? So he says that's why we come and we open up the doors for them. Right? Why? The Chatam Sofer says like this. He says, "V'hi Noam Hashem Elokeinu shu Rashi Tevot." Right? He says Noam is ner, ani, and mezuzah. And also you could say Rashi Tevot ma'an, right? Is also v'hu romez the pasuk Hashem ma'on atayita lanu. Right? It's a pasuk in Tefillah Moshe. Adonai ma'on atayita lanu betor v'tor. What does that mean? Our houses, they become a bayit, they become a house and a ma'on, right? For the Shekhinah during the time of Hanukkah. Why? Because when we light the candles, when we put the ner, right, what do we have? We have the Chanukiah, which is the ner on one side, the mezuzah on the other side of the door, because they say that the mezuzah is on the right side of the door, the Chanukiah is on the left side of the door, and the ani comes in the middle. And you come and you give him tzedakah in between. And that's what it means, v'hi noam, that we should have, right, this pleasantness, which is the noam, right, the ner, ani, mezuzah, the candles of Chanukkah, the ani, mezuzah. The minhag of money of Hanukkah gelt, right? That was actually the calling of Bnei Shimon. You know that the Ashkenazim, there's a very big minhag of giving Hanukkah gelt. Hanukkah gelt means money. Yeah. A lot of people have that minhag. So it says now, right? We understand why there's a minhag to give Ma'ot Hanukkah, and a lot of people they give it on the 5th night. He says why? Because that's when you read the Nasi of Bnei Shimon. That's why we had the zechut of, because of Shimon and Levi, that's what we have now. So that's why Dafka on the 5th night, they come and they give out money on the 5th night because of Shimon. Now, after the war of Shechem, Yaakov was blessed with his children. So it says, so that's a siman lebanim. Why? It says, after the milchama of Shechem, and now he's called Israel, he comes and he blesses everybody. But you're going to have a lot of kings. So too in Hanukkah, after the war of the Chashmonaim with the Yevan, we have a Lakan el Hanukkah. We are blessed with children, Tamidei Chachamim, because it says it's somebody that always lights the candles. The candles is going to be for having great children. So just like Yaakov Avinu was blessed after the war and after everything, that he became, right, Israel and not Yaakov, and he was blessed with the children, that we're going to have good children. You're going to have kings and everything coming after you. So too, we're going to be blessed with children, Tamidei Chachamim, when we fulfill the mitzvah of Hanukkah. Then Yaakov Avinu comes and he tells them, switch your clothing. Right? So he says, if you go into the path of Hashem, you're going to see that Yaakov Avinu comes and he tells them, get rid of all your avodah zarah, change your clothing. It's a remez that the people that they go after, the derech hayashar, just like we found by Yoshua Kohen Gadol, Yoshua was with very bad clothing. So he stood in front of the malach and he told him, right, you have to remove the clothing from you. Right? Put on nice clothing. What is this? You have dirty clothing. You have to put nice clothing. Right? So this is a remez that even an ani Shebi Israel has to come and sell his clothing in order that he should have the light of Hanukkah. And this is also what the Itur comes and he says that the Balabai b'talit mitzuyetzet be'emtza. What does that mean? You have the mezuzah on the right, ner Hanukkah on the left. That's what I told you before. The balabait with the talit, with the tzitzit in the middle. Why? Those are the nice clothing that a person has to have. And that's why there's going to be the minhag that a kala gives a talit to the chatan. Why is there minhag that a kala gives a talit to the chatan? So he says the reason why is because she gives a talit to the chatan, and it's a tefillah that their clothing should be like machlatzot banim ulchim, that they should go into the path of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, having children which are Tamidei Chachamim. That's why she gives a talit to the Chatan. right? We're almost finished. It comes and it says now as follows. He says, Anshe Shechem, why were they chayav mita? Why were they obligated the death penalty? So it says, you actually see that the Shechem, right? The reason why is because they went and they did a Brit Milah, right? So he comes and he says the purpose of the Brit Milah was not just for the Brit Milah to take off the circumcision, right? But rather the foreskin, but rather it's Olat Halev. It's for the heart and to minimize our desires. And that's what Rashi says, Limol lachem, liot nimol. What does that mean? That you become that. The reason for the Milah, says the Ramban, is because that organ is something which loves desires, and therefore we want to minimize it. And the Kli Yakar comes and he says, it's something which is already found, and you want to come and to put all your desires in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, that's why he comes and he says, right, that was the purpose of the Brit Milah. Okay, and that's also the Prim Menachem. He comes and he says the same thing about the Brit Milah. The Milat Anshe Shechem, when it's written, it was done b'mirma, with trickery, with wisdom. What was the wisdom? Right? Bnei Yaakov already knew the truth. He says they didn't want to do that. Right? They just wanted to take the daughters. Right? They didn't do a true Brit Milah. They did a Brit Milah just to get the daughters of the Jews, but not because of that. Now, if he's doing it for another reason, it's not considered a Brit Milah. And therefore they went and did this. Therefore they were chayav mita. That's why he says they were actually obligated the death penalty, and they went and they actually killed them out. Okay? So you see from here, right, all the different things, right, how everything that happened in this week's parasha, which I think is something beautiful, everything that happened in this week's parasha is actually showing us that whatever happened to Yaakov happened to his children, whether it was in the story of Purim, or whether it was in the story of Hanuka. And therefore, it's incumbent upon us just to remember this, because Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim, history repeats itself. And what happened to our forefathers, you come and you think you're doing a small action, it could cause that chain effect that many generations later, it's actually going to change everything. Bezrat Hashem, I just hope that we're able to internalize this message, to see the beauty of how everything connected, and see the whether it's a Mesirut Nefesh that we could repeat on Chanukah, that we come and we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want to do our utmost. We're doing it for you. We're not doing it for anybody else. And all of a sudden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does all the miracles, Bezrat Hashem, to us.